Welcome home. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We are Baltimore Positive. We have been breaking down Monday night's 38-30 loss, the hands of the Detroit Lions, and the short week of preparation, getting ready for the Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to get the Maryland Crab Cake Tour back out. Speaking of short weeks of preparation, I did a lot of stuff in August, a little bit here in September. As we get back into October, I'm going to be bringing these Raven scratch-offs out for the Maryland Crab Cake Tour. Probably going to have some crab soup because it's that time of the year as well. Get back to Costas, get back down to Coco's, certainly get down to Fadley's as we see the new Fadley's and the Fishmonger's Daughter being built over in Catonsville. Did our show at the Beaumont last week, and I wish we had better news than 1-2 and a really, really tough start to the season for the Ravens now on the road to Kansas City. The injuries have started to pile up on the defensive side. Luke, I wrote down special teams as something to sort of talk about a little bit here. And you're like, well, they're not missing a lot of field goals. I just think that they're playing the game differently. 4th and 9 for lots of reasons, right? Like the team we thought they were in the third quarter in Buffalo a couple of weeks ago doesn't, and that's typical to 3-4 weeks into the season where, hey, they were 0-2 last year losing to the Raiders, right? So, and still had every opportunity to secure that 2-point conversion in Mark Andrews and march on and go back to Kansas City again. Now, this week they go to Kansas City 1-2 with their feelings hurt. They got pushed around on Monday night, but sacks for Lamar, lack of being able to run the ball, Derrick Henry dropping the ball, defensively disastrous, really, without Matabike. No pass rush, can't stop the run, had a hard time stopping the pass in certain circumstances. Um, there's a lot of meat on the bone here, but the special teams part for me is the thing that I see as the glaring thing because the cast of characters have changed and how I feel about them punting and whether they're going to get a good punt or not. I always felt like with Sam Cook, I mean, God bless the Wolfpack. I'm glad it did a whole chapter on them in Purple Rain too. But there was a different level of confidence about special teams and about where they could get 3 points, where they would want to punt, if they ever would want to punt, what kind of punt they would get. And then the kickoff thing's just weird around the league. I've watched all these kickers hem and haw about exactly where they need to put the ball. I saw the Ravens field a ball that would have gone out of bounds, or you feel like it would have gone out of bounds. We saw the Steelers kid let the ball go over his head last week, and the Seahawks piled on it. It's just been this is a strange thing for fans. And I even heard like Joe Buck say, what does that mean, Troy? Does that mean to get it on a 20 or the 4? Like just trying to interpret the rules because it's been a sea change for special teams in this league in recent years. And I think fans are trying to understand it a little bit better on the kickoff side. But kickers have had a hard time executing some of this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question about it. First of all, it's an absolute positive because kickoffs are becoming a thing again. Whereas in recent years, and this is why they made the change they did last year, that had become touchback, 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 maybe a return, touchback, touchback. I mean, that's kind of what you were seeing around the league. It was becoming kind of like what they didn't like, what the extra point had become, just being so incredibly automatic. It's why they moved it back to the 15-yard line as opposed to the 2 as it had been for years.
Well,
So
making competitive plays, right?
sure. So,
Right.
but I think, I mean, I don't really, obviously it's a negative when Tyler Loop doesn't drop it inside the landing zone after the Ravens scored their touchdown to start the third quarter and Detroit gets the ball at the 40-yard line. And, but we've seen that both ways. We've seen that for Ravens opponents. We've seen the Ravens be in that position where, kick goes out of bounds and you get it at the 40-yard line. It's changed the strategy though. Like for the longest time, I mean, even go back years ago, I think back to Billy Cundiff, not the Billy Cundiff in Foxborough, the Billy Cundiff who made the Pro Bowl the previous year. A big part of that was he had a heck of a foot for kickoffs and that was at a time when the kickoff was from the 30 and he could really boot it. And that gave the Ravens a distinct advantage for kickoffs and covering kicks. And, at that point in time, you liked touchbacks, right? I mean, the touchback was at the 20-yard line. You were fine with that. Now you boot it in the end zone. They get it at the 35. So it has changed the strategy. It has changed how teams want to approach it, whether it's kind of almost like not a squib, but, you kind of just pooch it. You want to just kind of
Well, it's a
drop
field
it in.
position game. The difference between the 20 and the 35 and the 40 is like a 15-yard penalty, right?
Yeah.
Or a real positive first play on a drive.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is something that, I mean, even if Justin Tucker were the Ravens kicker this year still, it would have been different for him because they kind of changed it. I mean, last year, a lot of teams still said, you know what, we're going to kick it in the end zone and we'll give it to you at the 30. I mean, they were still doing that. You put it at the 35, and then, kind of the juxtaposition of that, where if you don't get in, if you come up short of the landing zone, as Loop did after that touchdown early in the, what, I guess close to midway through the third quarter, but after their touchdown drive to start the second half, then, it gives the opposition the ball at the 40. So it has changed things. I don't think the Ravens are necessarily doing it any better or any worse than your typical team, but it's something that can be a little more glaring. And certainly when you have a rookie kicker that, is trying to figure this out just like everyone else, in addition to, oh yeah, making field goals and making extra points and all of that. I mean, I don't know how much they brought it up, but how about Loop's kick that there was a lot of debate whether he actually made that,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously that was at the opposite end zone from the corner where the press box
Dude,
is,
why aren't
but
they chipping these balls? I mean, just down on the end zone and just where
um
first downs are, like just
in
chip the
all
ball.
my understanding with some of that is, and it's kind of like the automated strike zone in baseball. I mean, the automated strike zone in baseball has been talked about for a number of years now. It's finally getting to the point where there's a degree of reliability where it's, I think, going to become a thing, whether it's next year or the year after that, like it's coming. I think there's still some of that at work here as far as
But these plays are settling bets of millions, if not
I
billions of
understand.
dollars,
I understand that, but what
Get
I'm
the call
saying is
right.
I don't know if the technology is fully as reliable as they want it to be before they make the change. So, but that said, I mean, these types of plays are important. I mean, we saw special teams around the league. I don't think special teams necessarily played a major factor in Monday night's game, but it certainly did around the league on Sunday when you look at blocked kicks and missed kicks and made kicks. I mean, how about the fact that the Lions tried a 67-yard field goal right before halftime, and it had the distance. It was wide left, but it had the distance. So it also speaks to the talent level of the kickers. I mean, you're seeing kicks being attempted now. I mean, we saw this with Brandon Aubrey in Dallas. When the Ravens were there last year, he made a kick in the first half from like 60. I think it was 60 yards, and like it was not even like, oh, here's Brandon Aubrey to try a 60-yard field goal. And it was like he casually makes it, right? I mean, granted, it's kicking inside and all of that, but it really does speak to the raw leg strength that you're seeing from kickers. And yeah, you still see kickers have their misses and
But it
their
also speaks to
miscues, but
strategy and
sure,
how we played the game differently here in so many ways. I mean, you talk about Campbell going for that 4th and 2 and throwing that balls out Anquan Bolden back shoulder thing that they threw to their star wide
St.
receiver,
Brown.
right? I mean, by the way, whole German background. I watched the pregame show. He might be my favorite player in the league now. All of a sudden, he seems like a nicer version of Steve Smith. But so for me, watching how teams navigate what they think of their special teams, whether it's attempting a 70-yard field goal, with 2 seconds left in the first half, because why not, as long as it doesn't get blocked. I saw kickers making tackles on Sunday too. So that's another part of this is and I saw so many blocked punts and people being able to get in and you can't leverage, but I saw leapfrogs. I saw all sorts of stuff going on in the special teams game, but the headspace of field position, can my kicker make it? Is my punter really going to pin him in, or is he going to pooch it? Are we going to get a 30-yard punt here? Are we going to get a 60-yard punt here? I don't know. We were spoiled here, as we would say in East Baltimore. Like we were spoiled with the Wolfpack because that's rare, unique, and as much as kickers can kick it further and punters can punt it better, and the rules have changed and all that stuff, It's still a sloppier part of the game as I watch the game from my couch here the last 3 weeks watching all this football. It's still something that it's an unreliable art form in a lot of ways, and it was made very to feel very reliable here for a long time, and that's a credit. And if Harbaugh's out there listening, this is the most insulting thing you can ever say to John Harbaugh. Don't ever say this to John Harbaugh for being a special teams coach, because he was a special teams coach, and the special teams here were special for a long, long time. I know they're trying to get that back, and Randy Brown, just on and on as to how important it is. But when it's not the best in sport, when it's not top of game like the running defense was on Monday night, it becomes a glaring thing we talk about, because we haven't talked about kickers and punters, and we haven't done much of that since Billy Cundiff around here.
Well, we did a lot about Justin Tucker last year. It's one reason why the Ravens more easily moved on from him, which obviously
That football decision.
Oh, but there were football factors because he had the worst year of his career last year. I'm not going to sit here and say that wasn't part of it. I'm not saying sitting here saying it's a driving force either, but yeah, I mean it's a factor. Again, I'm not sure how much of a factor it was Monday night per se, but yeah, that's something that has to be better. It's something that has to be on point. I mean, you kind of look at this team across the board. I mean, attention to detail in big moments. I mean, we talked about it with Trenton Simpson with his failure to down the ball at the 1 yard line in Buffalo. I mean, that was massive, right? I mean, a situation where you have a chance to have them backed up and they have it at the 20 instead. So, I've already mentioned it, but when you look at the decision on 4th and 9 with 4.5 minutes to go, and you send Jordan Stout out there and you're punting from your own 32, that's a chance where that's an opportunity there where you need a boomer. And he boomed a couple punts. He had a couple really good punts, and this is where considering Jordan Stout was a 4th round pick back 2022, he's in a contract year. He also has had the tendency to, when they've really truly needed a big time punt, he hasn't necessarily come through. But there was an example right there. So, whether you're talking about something with the landing zone with kickoffs with Loop, or Loop making a kick, missing a kick, whatever.
Hey, look, dude, you can't pin him back further than the 1.5. They had two 95-yard drives. So from a field position standpoint, yeah, a couple times that they, you can't do much better than starting to drive there defensively.
You kind of just made my argument for why I said I think you need to more strongly consider going for it on 4th and 9 in that spot because of what you just said, right? They can pin it. Yeah, the idea Detroit was at the advantage there, right? I mean, at that point they're trailing, they're leading by 7 points. So the burden is on the Ravens to make a stop. Detroit doesn't need to score there. Detroit, you can pin them back, and to your point, you can have an 11-minute drive. I mean, not 11 minutes, but the point is they could go into 4-minute offense there and just bleed the clock. So
yeah, again, I mean, Detroit had a chance to end the game at the 2-minute warning. The Ravens scored that touchdown to push the game closer. They were 1.5 yards, one broken tackle, and the game's over there, right? So, as far as giving the ball back or whatever at that point, if you really have confidence in your special teams, to our point here, that you feel like we can punt anytime, anywhere, and you're going to start from the 12, the 15, the 8-yard line, whatever. I don't feel that way about this punter. I don't feel that way. I don't have a body of evidence for Tyler Loop for a couple of games as to how my nuts are going to feel with 7 seconds left on the clock if he's got to make a 53-yard field goal in Kansas City on Sunday, right? I don't know. We don't know, but I don't have confidence in that part of their game right now. I don't know, dude. What do you?
I just didn't like. For me, it has nothing to do with Jordan Stout there. Like for me, it's looking at how much time's left and are you going to get another possession? That's what it came down to. Yeah, you got another possession after Detroit scored a touchdown.
But if I'm going to punt, it has to be a good punt.
Oh, sure. And I said that, right? I mean, yeah. So, but these are game theory. These are, this is probability. This is 4th and go for it or not go for it models. I mean, you follow the right accounts on social media, on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. It automatically comes up. Ben Baldwin has a 4th down bot that, well, if you follow it, whatever games it's tracking, it'll automatically come up and say, is this a go or is this a punt? Is this a go for it or is this kick a field goal? So, that 4th and 9 for what it's worth. And again, understanding that these things do not happen in a vacuum. That 4th and 9, they said to go. Now, again, it's way different. I am not comparing that to Buffalo, where to me it absolutely was a go for it, and it was a much shorter 4th down to convert. But I think you have to be realistic about where your defense was at that point in time. But to your point, yeah, if you are going to punt, that's when Jordan Stout needs to come up big, and he didn't. Right? I mean, it goes back to when this team is in these situations where they're a little, whether it's really close or they're behind the 8 ball like they were in that instance. You need someone to come up big there. How about the fact, how about if he booms one so much that Detroit's punt returner makes the blunder of trying to field the ball inside the 5 yard line or inside the 10 yard line and he muffs it, right? I mean, but instead, I mean, he punted it out of bounds, right? And did not get all of that one. So it's just part of it. Special teams isn't why they lost on Monday night. No one's going to say that, but it's a matter of just being finer in what you're doing. I mean, how about the fact, we touched on it in passing, but what's going on with their goal to go play calling, right? I mean, they had the second, the second quarter, I mean, where, you end up coming up empty, and I get it. They got to stop, and then they scored a touchdown on the following drive. But even in the third quarter, you think about it, you have what, 1st and goal from the 10, and you have Derrick Henry try a pass from the 10. I didn't like that. I mean, it's one thing that, and we saw Derrick Henry do this against the Ravens in the past, right? It's one thing if it's a jump pass from the 2 yard line and you throw it over Earl Thomas's head in the way they did in that playoff game 6 years ago. But it's another thing when you're going to try something like that from the 10. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like, I thought when they got stopped in the first half, they're at the 1 yard line on 3rd down and 4th down. The Ravens were one of the teams that voted not to get rid of the tush push. The Ravens may not run it with the prolific nature that Philadelphia can. They're not perfect at it the way Philadelphia basically is, but we've seen them run that very well with Mark Andrews. Why wouldn't you just tush push rather than, they come out of the 2-minute warning and kind of rush to the line, and it felt like they kind of rushed themselves right out of executing. So no, it's just, even with the offense that's been so great and they've scored so many points. And again, I don't want to make it sound like I'm blaming the defense is way more to blame for what we're seeing as far as why this team's 1-2. But they just are finding they're more out of sorts than they should be, right? I mean, inside the 5 yard line, you've got the greatest rushing quarterback in NFL history and a guy that might go down as a top 10 running back in the history of the NFL, right? I mean, certainly a guy that is trending that way if he does it a couple more years. It shouldn't be tough inside, goal to go shouldn't be tough for this team. And it feels like it's tougher for this team right now than it should be. So now, okay, I get it. The offensive line's not an elite group. And, here something can happen on any given play that kind of gums things up. But right there, that feels like something that should be like elementary algebra, and they're making it calculus, when they're inside the 5 yard line as far as what they're trying to do. So, it's just, they've got to be better. They've got to be sharper. They need to be sharper with attention to detail. I mean, that's one of the biggest reasons why they lost in Buffalo. I don't think that's the primary reason why they lost, because I just think Detroit was just better than them, period. But that doesn't mean they don't need to be better in those ways as well. So, Monday night was, just kind of Detroit being better, generally speaking. But yeah, when you've got situational football, when you've got a, specific decision to make, if you're a coach, or special teams needing to execute at a given point, or, whatever the call might be on defense, your run fit, I think, I saw a great breakdown of how well Detroit blocked on Montgomery's final touchdown run, after they converted on 4th and 2. But you also look at that play, Teddy Buchanan kind of cheated, did not protect the cutback possibility. And, you kind of see a couple defensive linemen kind of get turned the wrong way in terms of, what their run fit presumably was, that gap integrity. So, I mean, these are the things that either get you beat or make it impossible for you to stage a comeback, or make it difficult to protect a lead or affect your field position, whether you're getting the ball or giving it back to the opposition. I mean, these are things that they need to be cleaner with, because I think we all look at this team and see the talent, right? I mean, the defense right now, I mean, that feels fraudulent right now. They've got, I mean, that's some soul searching, and that goes beyond Matabike and Van Noy, because Matabike and Van Noy were on the field against Buffalo, especially in the fourth quarter, and they completely got
But the problem is they don't
gashed.
have a replacement
But
for that. The
oh, no,
problem
no
is the
doubt.
B team.
But that's why you have to be even finer with all the details then. If you've got some deficiencies because of some injuries, yeah, and let me be in the interest of fairness, because I just beat them up. I just criticized Todd Monken with the play calling inside the 10. That's where you do miss Pat Ricard big time. You might not miss Pat Ricard as much in between the 20s with your ability to move the ball in so many different ways. But when you get in the compressed, condensed area of the field inside the 5-yard line, that's when you want a 300-pound fullback that can absolutely blow up a guy and spring Derrick Henry for a touchdown, or spring Lamar Jackson for a touchdown in that spot. That they are lacking that. So yeah, I mean, the injuries are part of this. I'm not going to sit here and say that, you know, it's easy just to say next man up, next man up, next man up. But, you're talking about $100 million defensive tackle that's not out there. But that said, man, you got to do better than that, right? I mean, you can't. This is like a couple days ago when you and I were talking about the Orioles, and I really started talking about their young core and how disappointing it's been. And yeah, I'll hear the injuries, and that's absolutely part of the equation. But that doesn't give you license to be the worst in the league, like the Orioles being last in runs scored over the last 2 months of the season. It doesn't give the Ravens license to give up over 200 yards when Matabike and Van Noy aren't out there. I mean, come on now. That doesn't say much for the other guys on your football team then. Like, to Kyle Hamilton's point, shame on us if we're going to completely fall apart because we're missing one Pro Bowl player, right? Meaning, their D line. So I certainly wouldn't hope those guys are saying, woe is me. Oh, we didn't have Matabike and Van Noy. Oh, well, right? You
Well,
got to
Humphrey
do
doesn't
better
look
than that.
healthy, right? Jones looks
Just
like
hasn't looked
he's
good,
a
period.
problem
Right.
right now, right? I mean, so in that way, likely hasn't gotten onto the field. You mentioned things about the offense they'd like to do, playing heavier in certain Ricard, same thing. So they have been snake bitten by injury in a way that they weren't last year. And, we're not talking about Lamar or Derrick Henry being injured. Maybe their feelings were hurt. And Andrews emerging again on Monday night was, I guess, a little glimmer of purple fairy dust to try to put on this thing this week, because I'm trying to say who's playing well. And by the way, we're about 2-3 hours into this conversation, you and me, here in the aftermath. I haven't pissed on the head coach yet, or the defensive coordinator, or Pagano, or the play call, all of these ideological things that made me feel during the game, certainly during the game, play to play, they were getting out coached. They literally, the Lions looked and said, this is a deficiency we're going to go after, in the same way that everybody's been going after the Alabama cornerback, from the Lions. Yeah. The Ravens tried to exploit that. Man, Hopkins is unbelievable too. Like, just in a general sense of throw the ball up, I have full confidence he's going to come down with it. And they have all of these weapons. Flowers was asleep on them. We didn't hear from him. It was, and the Derrick Henry fumbling thing, I don't even know where to be. You're not going to find a bigger. I own a Derrick Henry jersey. I'm a Derrick Henry guy. I don't know what to make of this, other than, if I'm writing my John Stedman column today, and I've been talking about it for 3 hours here on the radio, and I'll continue to do that all week until they play, I'm trying to find anything I'm happy with other than Lamar's quarterback rating.
Yeah, I mean, I think Lamar is playing at a high level mostly. I don't know if I don't know if I'd go as far as saying he's playing as well as he did last year at his best. But look, Lamar Jackson's obviously the least of their worries. But yeah, I mean, Derrick Henry, the last few years had hardly fumbled at all. He's fumbled in each of the first 3 games. Now, the the Cleveland one, Tylan Wallace, if you recall, recovered it and then caught a touchdown on the next play. Great sequence for him. But not only has Derrick Henry fumbled in 3 straight games, but it's been a back-breaking fumble in the fourth quarter in 2 of those that they've lost. So, it doesn't mean he's washed up
We didn't even pay the price for it on Monday night. It was a field goal, right? So it
but
didn't really crush him.
I mean, it didn't, but it hurt.
Oh, I think
I
it
mean,
changed the momentum.
yeah.
It tilted the field. It tilted the crowd.
It's 3 points gifted to Detroit, and that's one. You lost a possession as a result, right? I mean, possessions are. I thought one thing that I wasn't surprised by because I think either team would have done it, quite frankly, but certainly Dan Campbell was going to do it. But I want to go back to the first drive. They had 4th and 3 from the 11. I'm sure, and I didn't hear the broadcast copy. I'm sure Troy Aikman wanted them to kick a field goal there. I could guarantee it. Chris Collinsworth would say the same thing. Tony Romo would say the same thing. Get points, get a lead, and you're feeling good about yourself, right? I mean, that's what you hear the old school analysts say on TV. Dan Kemp, they went for it, right? I mean, they went for it. Ravens blitz. They went right to St. Brown, 1st and goal. Score a touchdown a couple plays later. They told you right there what kind of game they thought it was going to be. And Dan Campbell and the Lions came in to a hostile environment. We've talked about this so much over the years, Nestor, in terms of the Lamar factor, how the Ravens have played. And I'm not talking about January or like when they play Kansas City or Buffalo. I'm talking about teams that they don't see as often. The NFC thing, we've talked about that so much, right? But also lesser teams in the AFC. There are so many teams that, let's call a spade a spade. They're defeated before they even walk into the stadium when they know they're playing Lamar Jackson and the Ravens.
Well, the first time Lamar breaks their ankles, it's over.
They quit or they are so, we talk about the idea of putting the defense in stress, and the Ravens are so great at doing that and have been from the moment Lamar Jackson replaced Joe Flacco and they were running the bumper pool, electronic football offense that they ran that first year, especially. But Detroit, they came in and they weren't intimidated whatsoever. They came in and, like I said, on that first drive, 4th and 3, it's not 4th and 1, 4th and 3 from the 11. That even in this day and age where you see more aggressive offense across the league in those situations, that's still one where I think a lot of teams kick the field goal. Dan Campbell and the Lions said, no, this isn't going to be that kind of game. And
the Lions played calm.
They were smart.
On the road, they really played calm. Bold, I mean, they impressed me.
They were really bold too. And how many times have we said, if you want to give yourself the best chance against a Lamar Jackson-led Ravens team, Lamar Jackson-led Ravens offense that even this year, I mean, we're talking about the mistakes they made. They still scored 30 points on Monday night, right? I mean, it speaks to how prolific and explosive and deep this offense can be, even when they're not, their chakras aren't all aligned in the way that you'd like them to be. They're not firing on all cylinders exactly. And, they've had some guys out of the lineup here these first few games. But I've said this so many times. If you're going to beat the Baltimore Ravens, you cannot be afraid to fail when it comes to being bold, when you're faced with 4th down, when you're faced with situations where you need to throw the ball, situations where you should run you can't play with any fear against them. And Detroit came in and played with no fear whatsoever. Look, again, they were 15-2 last year. The Ravens, this just because they don't play the Lions very often, and I was as guilty of this as anyone. You saw what happened 2 years ago, and you said, "Oh, the Lions came in, and they got their asses kicked," because they did. Right? That game was over midway through the second quarter 2 years ago, and the Lions were really good 2 years ago. Right? I mean, they were a playoff team and all that. But
a dozen to 15 of these guys were on the field that night, right?
Sure.
All the key players were part of that team.
But they came in and they were a completely different team. They took it to the Ravens. They dictated how they wanted to play, and the Ravens had no answers for them. Ultimately, had not enough answers for them. And it's a credit to Dan Campbell. And it's funny because we've talked a lot about this 4th and 9 decision. And again, 4th and 9 is not 4th and 3 like it was back in week 1, or a 4th and 2 like Detroit went for in the fourth quarter and got it. But it has been interesting to see where John Harbaugh and this offense and this decision making process was 6 or 7 years ago, how bold they were. I mean, the one time they beat Kansas City in the Lamar era was that Sunday night game in Baltimore, where they went for a fourth down, right? Where in their own territory, where you're saying, hey, this is the game. And they went and they won the game there. Kansas City didn't get the ball back. We've seen John Harbaugh and this team get more conservative the last few years in those situations. And I'll be honest, Nestor, I'm not entirely sure why. I mean, and John's been, he's asked about these, and look, we're not just talking about the Ben Baldwin's fourth down bot on social media. I mean,
But
all
by
those.
the way, I mentioned the confidence level in their special teams in a general sense. I think that dictates some of this, where I can be comfortable punting or kicking, or comfortable that my defense can go out and make
I think it's
and
more
make
the
a stop,
defense. Yeah.
or confidence that we're going to make a 4th and 3 instead of we're going to fumble, or Lamar's going to drop the ball, or something black
But can you,
cloud's going to happen
yeah,
on fourth down, as opposed to we're going to run the ball down down your throat.
yeah,
And they don't have that mentality right now. You know
but
why? Because they don't really have that ability right now. The ability to run the ball down your throat right this minute, in the way that they're playing and the way the offensive line is playing. They do against bad teams, not against Myles Garrett, not against Aiden Hutchinson.
yeah, but they did it in Buffalo, and they had run all over the place in Buffalo. I hear what you're saying. At the same time, I don't know if I don't know if you can
Well,
get
part of
where
that
you
scheme too. They were pulling guards. They were doing all sorts of weird stuff that was
understood.
really working and being effective. And
I
to your
just
point, being bold. Getting the other team off their dime, which they never could do to golf defensively on Monday night.
Yeah, but I hear what you're saying, but I also feel, man, I don't know if this team's going to get with that mindset. I don't know if you're going to get where you ultimately want to go in the big picture
Well, they're going to
sense.
give up points every week. Let's stop with this, right? Like, Lamar's going to have to get in the phone booth at some
Till
point.
further notice,
Henry,
yeah.
all of that. Zay Flowers, they're going to need all of that offensively, because it feels like they're going to roll the ball out and give up 20 every week. Let them add it to anybody.
Unless you're playing the Browns, right?
Right.
I mean, and the Browns scored 17 in the last one. That was garbage, right? I mean, that was a garbage touchdown. Again, backups against backups at that point. But yeah, I mean, that's where that's where I'm not trying to belabor the point, because I think, we're talking about this big picture idea of when to be bold, when to be aggressive, when to be more conservative, right? All of that. But that's where I keep going back to that 4th and 9 and saying, man, I don't know if the confidence in your defense there was warranted. And I get it, 4th and 9s, but I also hear John Harbaugh saying, well, have you seen what our offenses look like since the first drive of the second half? Not exactly. Point is, you're kind of in a low percentage spot either way, but
I think he's extending the game there at that point.
did he though?
Okay. Right. Well,
He didn't extend the game.
right.
You know what I mean? Like, if your defense gets a stop, but their defense didn't get a stop, right? So, but point is, when you're in that spot and there's 3.5 minutes to go or whatever it is, you're down a touchdown. Your defense is given up. At that point, I don't know if it was 200 yards, but it's close to 200 rushing yards at that point.
To your point, you're not really living another day. You're already losing.
Yeah, neither one of those is a high proposition. It's like in baseball, right? I mean, runners rounding third, the third base coach has to decide if he's giving them the windmill or the stop sign. If your number 9 hitter is coming up next, if you think you got a 40% or 50 shot to score there, or even like a 30% chance, if it's Jorge Mateo, no disrespect, but it's Jorge Mateo, due up, you better send them there. Even if an okay throw is going to nail the guy by 6 feet at the plate, because that's still going to be a higher percentage than what's up next. So again, this is so easy to say from the press box, let alone talking about it the next morning, right? But when your defense is in the state that it's in right now, man, I think more so than the special teams. You've talked about the special teams. I think that's where you look at this and say, you might need to start taking a few more chances like that, because the faith in your defense now has not been John Harbaugh has not been rewarded for the faith in his defense on either of these fourth down decisions late in the game in Buffalo and then on Monday night, albeit I get it. 4th and 9. It's a longer one. But
Well, you got Mahomes, Stroud, Stafford coming up here. You're seeing, quality quarterbacks who can beat you. And
Stroud in Houston's debatable right now, but I understand your
but
point. Yeah.
what is the strength of the defense? It's not the pass rush, certainly not the run stop at this point, and the back end of the secondary where all the draft picks were, money has been spent, all of that. Marlon Humphrey's limping. Roquan Smith looked a little lost without the protection up front, in the same way that Ray was a little lost when they went 3-4 back in the day.
They missed so many tackles. Yeah.
The missed tackle thing, as you pointed out in the aftermath, and the fact that they couldn't get off the field first and 98, first and 95. I mean, geez. I mean, we've not seen that once in 25 years in Baltimore and saw it twice on the same night.
Yeah. I mean, 18 plays, 98 yards, 10 minutes and 48 seconds. That's what the Lamar Ravens offense.
It's kind of stuff they ripped the Ray Lewis statue down about, right? If you do that around here, come on.
I mean, like I said, I don't know how many it's been, and it's been more than we would think, because we're talking about this stadium being close to 30 years old at this point, 27 years old at this point. But the number of 95-yard touchdown drives that the defense has allowed in that building over the years, it's not many, right? I mean, has there been one every year? Probably not, right? I mean, you're talking about something that in their heyday and in the glory days of Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and Suggs in their prime,
they didn't give up points.
They might not give up. They might give up one of those at home every 3 years or something like that. For that to happen twice in the same night, man, I mean, you talk about demoralizing, you talk about your pride, you talk about looking in the mirror and not liking what you see right now.
And it wasn't fluky either. It wasn't like on penalties or anything like that. It was just on losing plays.
They converted a lot of third downs. I mean, Detroit was 3rd and 4th down. I mean, and the Ravens were able to get them off the field a couple times, and they were able to do it. I mean, what was funny was it was kind of this feast or famine, right? I mean, either Detroit drove down the field and scored a touchdown, or the Ravens got a 3 and out. They didn't have like a 6 or 7 or 8 play drive where they ended up punting from midfield or something like that. It was like all or nothing.
They also didn't turn the ball over. They also didn't have a lot of penalties. They also were in favorable down and distance most of the game.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, but you look at how they finished. I mean, they were 7 of 14 on third. I mean, the Ravens were 6 of 11 on third down. It's not like the Ravens were awful on third down.
One way to stay in favorable down and distance, don't get sacked.
Sure.
So if there's no pass rush, incomplete pass, live another day at 2nd and 10. That's different than 2nd and 19.
And and for people that are questioning Zach Orton, look, Zach coaching staff needs to own their part of it too. Times where they did blitz, didn't get home. And when you blitz and you don't get home, then your coverage is more vulnerable.
And then the next time you think, I don't have the confidence level, he ain't getting there.
So, I mean, they tried different things, but man, they couldn't get any. I mean, 5 quarterback hits when a guy throws the ball how many times? I mean, it's not like Jared Goff threw a ton, but 5 hits, no sacks when he had 28 pass attempts. I mean, it's not very good. Doesn't say much for your pass rush, and it speaks to how much they did miss Matabike and Van Noy. But at the same time, look, we talk so much about, and I get it, it's his 3rd NFL game, but that's where you need Mike Green. David Ojabo was active. Was his name called at any point during the game?
We talked about him on Monday, but they didn't talk about him Monday night.
Yeah. I mean, so, Owe, I mean, without Van Noy out there, I mean, they need Owe to step up.
He made a play in the first series, and I never saw him the rest of the night.
He had a tackle for a loss, and he did have 2. He had 2 of their quarter. He was the only one that officially went down as having multiple quarterback hits. He had 2. But, he's in his 5th-year option year. Like, that guy's playing to get a $20 million a year contract somewhere. Now, I don't think any team's going to give him that, but he had 10 sacks last year. he's playing for a contract that I don't think he's going to get here, but someone to pay him. Man, without Kyle Van Noy, that was his time. You're going up against, and I get it. I mean, Taylor Decker and Panay Sewell are Pro Bowl tackles, but at some point in time, you kind of look at this defense and say, I mean, it's not like the Ravens don't have Pro Bowl talent. Even without Matabike, it's not as though they don't have high-priced guys at every level, or guys that you view as being future high-priced guys. Man, I mean, that they came up so small on defense. I mean, that is as underwhelming. 2 of the last 3 weeks. I mean, PU
38 points. You can't expect to win.
And the pass defense. I mean, Jair Alexander, was kind of took the brunt of it in week 1, and he hasn't been on the field since then, right? I mean, and we can talk about his knee and all that stuff. But
in a short week, we're going to talk about all of it, because 1 and 3 at 8:00 on Sunday night. You and I are doing emergency radio here.
I mean, it's not season over by any means, but you're really starting to think about this team in way different terms. There's no doubt about it. So, but even last year, when the first half was as bad as it was for their pass defense, they stopped the run at the very least. What's alarming here is you're not stopping the run. I mean, okay, Cleveland, I get
it. And
maybe
not going to stop it if Matabike is not going to play.
And that's the thing. I mean, it allows teams to put even more focus on Travis Jones. I mean, Broderick Washington, you got to stop the run. And, Brent Urban was up, and Peebles is going to play more. And you need your edge guys to set the edge and do what they need to do against the run. But, Kansas City doesn't have a run game like Detroit. But at the same time, if you're not going to stop it, they're going to run. So, man, this is
a bad circumstance. I don't know any place they could go that would be worse, but also a place where they could exercise some demons as well, and find the fountain of the first half from Buffalo in Orchard Park 2 weeks ago. Luke Jones can be found at Baltimore Luke. The GBMC hotline is up and running. I'm doing all sorts of pieces here in regard to men's health, women's health, care, local care, great hospital. They make great babies over at GBMC. They made my brother there, so that's a good thing. And also just the WNST tech service. If breaking news, short week, injury report, all of this stuff that's happening. Certainly the Matabike circumstance has all of us concerned. It's all brought to you by Cole Roofing and Gordian Energy. I'm getting the Maryland Crab Cake Tour, brought to you by Liberty Pure Solutions, as well as our friends at the Maryland Lottery. I have these fantastic matted, hopefully luckier than the Ravens were on Monday night, scratch-off tickets for the Maryland Crab Cake Tour. We're getting that back out on the road. Tastiness is down to number 2 and number 1. That is brought to you by Curio Wellness and Far and Dotter. I'm trying to chase Wendy around, get her on here, because I want to talk some rock and roll and tell her about my trip last week out to the West Coast, where I got to see football stadiums. Hey, I sent Joe Ortiz a text over the weekend because they're undefeated, and I told you I was in El Segundo, so when I was there, I thought about them. So, there's another team there that needs to be contended with. But with the Ravens thinking they're so much better than Cincinnati, so much better than Cleveland, got to be better than Pittsburgh, I don't know. They better be better than Kansas City, 4 o'clock on Sunday. Luke's going to be around all week. Any breaking news, you get it first. And, of course, you keep it right here. I'm Nestor. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore positive.